Foreign Affairs Minister is promising to keep up the fight against the tariffs. Christia Freeland argues they don't just hurt Canada's lumber industry, but American consumers as well. And Jeannie Lee is here now with more on that. So what's the latest on what Minister Freeland had to say, Jeannie?
Well, she spoke from Berlin, Andrew. She's attending the W20 summit on improving the economic prospects for women. And she told U.S. cable business channel CNBC that the fight with Washington is on. Certainly the fight for public opinion is on, because Freeland tried to appeal to Americans, many of whom, of course, cherish the dream of home ownership. Have a listen.
You need our lumber. You need our lumber to build your homes. Lumber prices are already very high in the United States. They've gone up about $3,000 per house this year. And for every $1,000 in increase of the price of a house, the U.S. home builders estimate that that means another 150,000 U.S. families can't afford a home.
But the U.S. Commerce Secretary quickly disputed that figure, saying that lumber is just a small percentage of the total cost of a home. Meanwhile, producers of Canadian lumber are crunching the numbers to figure out how much of a crunch this will mean for their bottom line and for jobs. Here's what the new duties will entail. We have a low of 3% or so for Irving. There's a special case regarding Irving. But we have a much heftier 19% or so for Resolute, over 20% for Canfor, and West Fraser gets the hardest heftiest tariff of all, of more than 24%. The average of other Canadian exporters will be about 20%. And these duties will begin to be slapped on shipments from Canada when they cross the border starting next week.
Yeah, starting right next week. And they are retroactive 90 days, because that was the day where Canada was given notice. So
the deadline for a new deal. Yes.
Right. Okay. So what other reaction are you seeing?
Well, we did see an early reaction in the Canadian dollar, of course, and we'll look at this chart to let you know what I'm talking about. It has slipped under the 73.5-cent level today, and that's the latest in a 14-month slide. Because you remember at the start of that chart on the left, we're talking about an 80-cent dollar, really a year to 14 months ago. Now, today's reaction is partly because the lumber industry does make up a significant part of the Canadian economy, and the tariffs might drive Americans to buy more of their lumber domestically and more from other countries, perhaps. So that's a bit of a reaction there. Now, the duties may sound tough, as I just outlined them, but in fact, they are less than what a lot of people were expecting. And you'll see that in the reaction of some of these stocks on Bay Street. West Fraser, which is being hit by the highest tariff of all, that stock is up 8.5% today. Canfor is up 6.8%, again because expectations were for even tougher tariffs. Meanwhile, you have Pulte Group. You probably have not heard of this company. It's one of the major American home builders. It's down about 3.5%. Same with other home builders in the U.S. on the prospect that maybe some people will be priced out of the market. But these are early days. There's still a lot to happen with this file, so this is just early reaction.
So you're zeroing in on the softwood stocks, which is what we're talking about.
Right.
But, there was a lot of talk throughout the day about, is there a looming trade war with Canada? And is that the kind of thing that would send Bay Street running from stocks? So how are the Canadian markets reacting?
Well, it would seem actually that U.S. markets are focusing on the next big executive order or announcement from Donald Trump, and that would be on tax reform. And on anticipation of that, we're seeing a massive rally on Wall Street. The TSX composite here at home up less, because oil stocks are down, and that's dragging down the index. But look at that gain on the Dow Jones index, 255 points, a second big gain in a row. Same for NASDAQ, which is now pushed above 6,000 for the very first time to a new record high. Here's a look at the Canadian dollar. We talked about it being lower earlier. It's still in the 73 and 2/3 zone at the moment. Price of oil below $50 a barrel, and gold also slipping, and that's also dragging down Bay Street.
All right. Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.